In 1587, over 100 Englishmen, women, and children landed on Roanoke Island, ready to build a new life. 3 years later, they were gone. The settlement was abandoned, their boats were missing, but there were no signs of a struggle. The only clue to their fate was a single, cryptic word carved into a wooden post: Croatoan. And just like that, they kicked off America's oldest, most baffling unsolved mystery. What really happened to the lost colony? Back in the late 16th century, Europe's biggest powers were playing a global game of chess, and the prize was the Americas. Queen Elizabeth I of England watched as Spain grew fabulously wealthy from its empire, and she wanted in on the action. England needed a foothold in the New World base for trade, a source of resources, and a convenient spot to raid Spanish treasure ships. The man for the job was Sir Walter Raleigh, a dashing courtier, explorer, and one of the Queen's absolute favorites. He was granted a charter to establish a colony in a huge, unexplored territory he called Virginia, to flatter his Virgin Queen. Raleigh threw his money and influence behind several expeditions. Starting with a recon mission in 1584, his captains landed on the outer banks of modern-day North Carolina and found the land promising, and the native Algonquian people to be welcoming at first. This glowing report was all the encouragement Raleigh needed. A first attempt to settle Roanoke Island in 1585 didn't stick. A combination of bad planning, rough weather, and souring relationships with the local tribes sent the colonists packing back to England a year later. But Raleigh wasn't one to give up easily. He was determined to plant a permanent English settlement, a real community of families who would put down roots. His second attempt would become legendary, not for its triumph, but for its mystifying disappearance. In 1587, a new fleet set sail from England, this time carrying over 100 settlers, including women and children. This wasn't just a military fort. England was sending families to build a new nation across the sea. The governor of this ambitious colony was John White, an artist whose incredible watercolor paintings give us a vivid snapshot of the people and environment of the time. Among the colonists were White's own daughter, Eleanor Dare, who was pregnant, and her husband Ananias. Shortly after arriving on August 18, 1587, Eleanor gave birth to a daughter named Virginia. Virginia Dare has the historic distinction of being the first English child born in the Americas, a tiny symbol of big hope for this fledgling colony. But that hope soon ran into harsh reality. The colonists' relationship with some local tribes was tense from the get-go. Plus, they hadn't even meant to be on Roanoke Island. Their original destination was further north in the Chesapeake Bay, for reasons that are still debated. The ship's pilot insisted on leaving them at the site of the previous failed colony. Realizing they were dangerously low on supplies for the coming winter, the colonists convinced a reluctant John White to return to England for reinforcements. He left behind his family, including his baby granddaughter, assuming he'd be back within a year. He never could have imagined it would be the last time he'd see any of them. John White's timing couldn't have been worse. He arrived back in England just as the entire country was bracing for war with Spain. The legendary Spanish Armada was sailing to invade, and every available English ship was commandeered for the war effort. For 3 long, agonizing years, White was stuck in England, helpless. Finally, in 1590, he hitched a ride on a privateering vessel and made his way back. As they approached Roanoke, there were no signal fires, no signs of life. The harbor was eerily silent. When White and his men went ashore, they found the settlement completely deserted. But this wasn't the scene of a massacre. The houses had been taken down, and the area had been enclosed by a protective wall of trees. There were no bodies, no skeletons, and no evidence of a battle. It looked more like a planned, orderly departure. Then he saw it. Carved into a post at the entrance to the fortified area was one clear word: Croatoan. On another tree nearby, he found the letters CRO. This wasn't just graffiti. Before he left, White had told the colonists that if they had to move, they should carve their destination into a tree. If they left in distress, they were to add a Maltese cross. There was no cross. The message seemed obvious. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, modern-day Hatteras Island, and the home of a friendly Algonquian tribe. White was relieved, believing his family and the others had simply relocated and were safe. He tried to sail south to Croatoan, but a furious storm rolled in, damaging his ships and forcing his crew to abandon the search and head back to Europe. John White never saw his daughter or granddaughter again, and the fate of the settlers became one of history's great cold cases. So where did they go? For centuries, this question has sparked endless speculation. The first and most enduring theory is assimilation. This is what John White himself believed. The Croatoan clue wasn't cryptic. It was a signpost. This theory suggests the colonists, facing starvation or other dangers, chose to move in with the friendly Croatoan people. Over time, they would have likely intermarried, adopted local customs, and their English identity would have slowly blended into the indigenous culture. In fact, explorers in the 1700s reported meeting Native Americans with gray eyes who claimed their ancestors could speak out of a book, a possible reference to the Bible. A second theory is a violent end. It's possible the colonists were attacked and killed by a more hostile tribe, or even by the Spanish. But the complete lack of a fight at the main settlement makes this a harder sell. An orderly departure just doesn't scream massacre. Other ideas have been floated. Maybe the colonists tried to sail back to England on their own and were lost at sea, or perhaps a deadly disease wiped them out. Another strong possibility is that the colony didn't move as a single unit, but split up. Some may have gone to Croatoan, while others tried to make it to their original destination further inland. For a long time, the story was all theories and folklore. But recently, archaeology has started turning this cold case hot. Scientists have been focusing on two main areas: Hatteras Island, the former Croatoan, and inland sites in Bertie County, about 50 miles west of Roanoke. That inland location is significant because it lines up with the hidden symbol of a fort found on one of John White's maps. Near an old Algonquian town in Bertie County, archaeologists have found fragments of English pottery from the 1580s, mixed in with Native American artifacts, which suggests the two groups may have lived together. Even more telling are the discoveries on Hatteras Island. Archaeologists Mark Horn and Scott Dawson have spent years excavating sites there. They found an incredible array of 16th century European items, including parts of swords, pieces from a gun, a writing slate with faint lettering, and other metal objects. Perhaps the most interesting find is something called hammer scale tiny flakes of iron that are a byproduct of blacksmithing. Significant amounts have been found, suggesting an ongoing blacksmith operation, which wasn't a technology used by the local tribes. This evidence strongly suggests English colonists weren't just passing through. They were living and working within the native village for an extended time. As the evidence piles up, a leading theory is becoming clearer. The colony may never have been lost at all. That romantic myth of a vanishing people was largely created centuries later. The colonists left a pretty clear message pointing to where they were going. It seems they moved, survived, and assimilated. They likely chose to join the Croatoan people, possibly splitting into smaller groups to better ensure their survival. The story of the Roanoke colony might not be one of a ghostly disappearance, but rather a remarkable tale of survival and adaptation. It's the story of English families integrating into a Native American society and creating a new blended community. We may never know the exact fate of every single person, or what became of little Virginia Dare, but the clues in the soil strongly suggest their story didn't just vanish into thin air. Instead, it became woven into the fabric of the indigenous people of North Carolina, a story hidden in history, just waiting to be rediscovered. The archaeological evidence seems to point toward assimilation, but the mystery isn't completely closed. What do you think happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown.